Hey y'all there, virtual farmers and crafters. Thanks for clicking and welcome to another guide for the game of SunnySide. If you're looking for more overall information on getting started in the game, I have the overview linked up in the corner there. There will also be more in-depth guides on farming, cooking, and food crafting in the playlist. Today's video is going to be talking a bit about the storyline running through the game and the relationships through which you can not only discover more about the town and its residents, but also about your own character. This also means that this video is going to be full of spoilers, just warning you now, but I'll explain the mechanics here at the beginning and give another warning before I completely just start giving away the whole plot. So, remember back to when you filled out the Squirrel IM social media profile at the beginning of the game? There was a slider bar at the bottom of the app that marked your gender expression in a scale from 0 to 10, going either in the feminine or masculine expression direction. If you wondered what that was for or why it was important, it largely has to do with what romanceable NPCs will be interested in dating you and how you feel about your identity, but it will not affect your physical appearance. Each romanceable character has been assigned a range within their preferred gender expression. If your chosen number falls within the range, you'll be able to start a romantic relationship with them after gaining levels on your friendship. Many characters even include the multipliers to how strongly they may be attracted to the number on the gender scale, making them more likely to ask you out on dates or accept them early on into building a friendship. I'll talk about this more later in the video, but I don't want to put all that much of a spoiler up front, as people's investigations on Discord have almost decoded the preference of the NPCs by now. Not entirely, but almost. This video is a bit long and it's broken down by chapters, so if you want to see what's known about the gender preferences of NPCs, look for that near the end of the video. Here's a quote from the developers. Players were never really meant to worry about the NPCs when choosing their gender on the slider. You're only supposed to choose where you feel you fall on the slider. If you read the description under the bar as you move it around, it generally explains what type of person may be represented by that choice. Like I said, everyone's experience is different, but if you simply think of yourself as a very feminine person, then I'd say choose the far left option. From what I can tell, there are 24 residents that will engage in romance relationships, while the older and committed townsfolk are still available for the Hangout feature. Your first introduction to the social features is when meeting Kaida to find out more about the caves and the disappearing Kami. To help Sparky with their objective to learn about humans, she suggests that you contact Gabe for a hangout in a quest called Making Friends. Your objective is to get to know people around town, to make true connections to them by knowing them and the people in their lives. This will chain down into Gabe suggesting that you do several more hangouts with his best buddy, getting you started on making friends around town, and finishing up with a final quest that will have you meeting all NPCs in the game. This is to help you get familiar with the interface in your in-game phone on contacting characters and initiating relationship building activities with them. To do this, we open the Squirrel IM. We can either select a recent contact who's already contacted us, or by going into the contact book for our full list to send them a message. There's some important information to decipher from this contact list. Icons here will give you an indication to where your friendship level and romantic interest is at. All relationships start out with a green acorn icon. This is your starting phase of having just met. As you continue activities like talking daily to NPCs, accepting of the initiating hangouts, giving gifts, and completing requests for items. This will all increase the levels of your friendship with that character. This acorn will advance in stages to a hardened brown acorn, to a sprout, to a seedling, to several sapling variations, and eventually into multiple levels of a growing tree until it's giant full-growth old tree. There are 11 friendship step levels in total that can be seen through the icon on your Squirrel IM contact list. Another set of icons you'll see appear on a few characters are butterflies. These butterflies indicate romantic interest in you, which may only start with one, but I've actually seen some indicators all the way up to 5, even if I haven't started dating them yet. But if you see 5 butterflies, it's entirely likely that they may be asking you out on a future hangout. Both you and random NPCs can message through the in-game phone for a hangout. To start one yourself, find the character that you want to hang out with in your messaging app or in the contact list. Start up a text conversation with them. When it's you that contacts them for the hangout, you'll be the one picking the spot to meet them. The map interface will open, and you can select either the SunnySide or Higashi map. Each location will allow you to partake in one or more activities, which will be listed when you click on the specific place that you want to go. For example, clicking on the Never Fret Pub in Sunnyside's map will list activities like having lunch, having dinner, playing at the arcade machines, and having drinks. All of this can be important as NPCs do have location and activity-specific preferences that you'll discover over time. You will get clues to this either by them outright expressing it at the end of Hangouts, or through dialogue lines that they drop when chatting with them from your daily activities of playing. An example is Kyle telling you, "I know we hang out at Never Fret a lot, but I don't actually drink," letting you know that he's not much into alcohol consumption. Hangout activities can also be dependent not just on location, but also by season. During the winter, Fudagawa Park and Hana Gardens will expand on the options that you can pick from, like building a snowman or snowball fights. These activities might also alter by the character that you are with, such as writing poetry or reading together with those NPCs that appreciate those hobbies. There's even an activity I consider a fun bonus in Hangouts with Hiro and Fuyukaze. Both of them offer the opportunity to drone race in several park locations. Opting in for this means opening up a race interface with your drone in which you'll have checkpoints and speed boosts to pass through while you try to keep up with them. The Higashi map offers the restaurant Got Nudes, the movie theater, animal shelter, record store, and shopping for clothes at Debonair, so definitely don't neglect that map on your hangout options. There's lots of choices there that some NPCs love to go to. Picking the right combination of hangout spot and activities just helps you grow those friendships and budding romances faster. At the end of each hangout, you'll be given a set of choices that further add a bonus onto that event. You can either tell them a simple goodbye, say something nice, give a gift, or ask if they need anything. Goodbye is a safe choice, but ultimately provides no real extra bonus. Not all characters take well to compliments, which you'll be able to decipher from their response to choosing that option. You can opt to give them a gift right then and there, of which each NPC has a list of items they like or don't care for. Or you can ask them what they want, which will then pop up a new quest in your journal for the specific thing that they've requested. To fulfill these requests, visit the local post office in SunnySide and interact with the store register. This will open an interface with all NPC names. Clicking on the character will bring up a note in the interface which you can write in whatever you want, sign it with kindness or love, and then hit the continue button to open a menu to drop in the appropriate items. It will be confirmed when Yukio tells you that the package will be delivered the next day, and you'll see a pop-up notification on the right side of your screen confirming the request was completed. As you continue to build up your friendships with both romanceable and non-romanceable characters, cutscenes will unlock with more dialogue revealing their individual stories and personality, along with the information that feeds into the larger narrative about the town. Sometimes you'll even get gossip that involves other characters that you've encountered. It might be important to get to know all the characters, as there are select NPCs that will be less inclined to date you if you're not familiar with their parents or friends. During that final question at the end of Hangouts, another button will pop up after starting your friendship building with that character, a button that says Confess. When you click, this will give you a confirmation message that asks if you're sure if you want to proceed, as this marks the beginning of a dating relationship. And while you can date multiple characters during this phase, eventually those dates may request that you commit to a serious relationship and end dating with all other NPCs. You might also notice that after initiating a dating relationship, some of their daily dialogue lines will change to reflect that you are dating. It opens up to learning all new information about them in addition to learning their general interests. Characters won't always accept your request. If your gender preference chosen at the beginning of the game doesn't match their range, they will tell you that they don't see you that way. Or your friendship levels might not advance far enough, in which you'll be told that they want more time to get to know you better. Just keep talking to them and inviting them for friendly hangouts. Romanceable NPCs may also ask you to start dating after a hangout. Similar to the confess option, if you say yes to this request, you'll be in a dating phase with that character and on track to a committed relationship. You can always turn them down at this point. Your friendship will continue to grow, and they may even maintain a romantic interest in you, and you can ask them out at a later time. Eventually, they will ask you to settle down with them and end your relationship with all the others. So be sure to be ready for this option. If you have been dating them for a while, it may affect the friendship if you break up with them. You may get a particularly sad or grumpy response if you wait until they confess their love for you. If you wait until this point to break up with them, you won't be able to date them again in the future. There is, however, multiple save files that you can start up if you find yourself wanting to experiment with more dating before you commit. It's also an opportunity to change up your gender expression for different characters. You are not obligated to date to find out character stories. There are new cutscenes for dating, but they really only add to the personality of the characters. I highly recommend getting into the stories of all the non-romanceable characters as well. They're very delightful to unfold as you experience SunnySide. This is the portion where the mechanics explanation ends and the spoilers begin. It's also where I mentioned that there's a cheat that exists in the form of a mod that you can download on Nexus Mods, which allows you to date any of the romanceable characters, regardless of what gender expression you chose in your initial profile. I'm doing a full video on mods soon, but for now I'll give a short explanation of how to install this. Pull up nexusmods.com and search for SunnySide. Our wonderful Discord community has been hard at work already, but specifically we're looking for the mod called Date Anyone by Janie Uwu. If you don't already have the free account, sign up for one and download the mod. It will be in a zipped format, so be sure to extract it before moving to the dateanyone_p.pack file over into the game files. For the appropriate game folder, go to your Steam app, find SunnySide in your game list, and right-click. Go to Manage, select Browse Files. This will pop up an Explorer window for the SunnySide install location. Click on the SunnySide folder, then the folder labeled Content. Double-click again into the folder marked Packs, PAK. This is where the mods are stored for making changes to the gameplay. Drag the .pak file over into the folder, and now it's installed and should be running when playing the game, making all romanceable characters available for dating. Now, just a disclaimer notice here, mods are used at your own risk. There's a small chance that it may corrupt your save data, so it's not a bad idea to create a backup file of your game save before using mods. So far I've been using this on an extra save and it's been working flawlessly. I haven't had any issues, but I can't say everyone's going to have the same good experience. And warning, the next section contains considerable spoilers, my opinions on the game design, and political themes too. If you choose to end the video here, I totally understand, and I appreciate that you stopped by. Thank you. Now on to talking a little bit about the overall plot. Normally, I ignore relationship systems in cozy farming sims, not to be too critical for me. A lot of them are kind of dull, with frequently repeating dialogue that has no substance, and basically just a gift-giving mechanic until your reputation bar starts to tick upward. Very rarely do I ever find plot lines to be entertaining in video games, but at least in SunnySide there's some relatable themes for me to grasp onto. There is a modern real-life story, and there's a fantasy one that's running concurrently under the surface, that you're competing to keep this small town alive against a changing economic landscape, and below, in the caves, is a fantasy world of old gods to discover. I'll reserve giving away too much about that part of the story. It's something that you can experience for yourself. For this guide, I'm going to get into why SunnySide is likely designed the way it is. What you'll likely pick up on as you continue to play through the game is the repetition about small towns dying in Japan, and that for many citizens of SunnySide, this is a concern. It's a theme that ties many together and encourages residents to ensure that you, the player, are a success in starting your farm. I'm guessing it's largely the reason developers didn't choose to add all items to the crafting bench initially, although in patch 6 came with a large list of materials that we could craft ourselves. The intention was to create a reliance on a local network of townsfolk, which you could imagine would be true if you were starting a farm in real life. You probably wouldn't be sawing wooden beams and forging steel sheets yourself. You'd be buying them from local businesses to build your project. This has made some players frustrated as they want the strict formula that many other games follow where you can make everything in the game by yourself. By the way, there's a mod for that too. There's basically what mods are for, tailoring your play experience beyond what the developers intended. There's so many creative decisions to make at the end of the day. I don't really feel like it's my place to criticize the vision people have for their art, but I swear some people act like it's a crime to deviate from the cozy farming sim norms. I can't imagine myself going into Raft Discord to complain about the developers and how they made the tools degrade and break down over time. I personally find it inconvenient, but I don't feel entitled to have them change that for me. I feel like the development with a community really is a double-edged sword because so many have the expectation that they should control how the game is made with no regard for creative decisions, development, or financial limitations. I find myself eye-rolling at some of the complaints about their playstyle not being catered to, while acknowledging that legitimate bugs that limit people's ability to play should be responded to. And I think the developers of SunnySide are doing their best to fix all the bugs. I commend their efforts to meet the expectations with their constraints. And I understand that there was a point to not catering to all expectations as part of the game is to build up your small town. Not in a way where many might be used to. You're not literally building new houses to recruit residents, they're already there and established. But what you're attempting to do is bring a skill set complementary to theirs in order to raise the overall economic viability to keep the town alive. It's a common theme of restoring a town in a modern way. Support small business is the general theme. As a person with 2 small businesses, I can definitely appreciate this. For example, my auto detailing business does not make its own soaps and ceramic coatings. Those I buy from vendors, mostly local suppliers who stock the manufacturer's products that I use. I'm not about to start a polymer business because it would be too much of an investment and time just to have my own brand of cleaning products. If all detailers made their own, then little retailers who we buy from wouldn't survive. Weekend warriors cleaning their own cars wouldn't keep them in enough business to pay the bills. Being raised in a small town makes me aware of how important that would be to ensuring the economy of the entire town survives. Otherwise, people are forced to move on for other opportunities, much like what's happening in SunnySide. Heroes and the Blacksmith Ishikawa storylines really get into this as you learn about the ideological battle between technology and tradition through the 2 characters. Hero thinks the solution to saving SunnySide is technology, hosting websites, and proving the town's worth through reviews, while Kazuki worries that technology will only bring further misfortune. Advising against it, Kazuki expresses how much heartache technology has brought him personally, and his concerns about what it will do to his way of life. I'm a person who remembers life before the internet, so I do get why he's concerned. Technology has a lot of upsides, but it also comes with its consequences to society at the same time. Not all of them will be positive. With every upside, there's going to be those downsides. You're not just trying to do your part to save the town above ground, you're also trying to be a hero in the depths of the cave as you progress through Sparky's storyline and learn their true identity by powering up each level to restore climates and interact with its residents. This tells a more fanciful tale of a world unseen, about thousands of year old world that has predated ours. It is, after all, Sparky's function to learn about human behavior, and it's encouraging you, the player, to explore relationships with as many people as you can, with Sparky frequently inquiring you upon the end of your hangouts to understand more about why humans behave the way they do. Those are perhaps some of my favorite moments in the game, as if Sparky is a small child that you're explaining the world of human emotions to. Lines like Gabe saying the animals are happy today, to having your character ask, what about him? His response being, I'm always happy, just screams the trope that many of us have witnessed in our culture. It's going to be different for everyone depending upon your experience when aging into your more mature years of observing people. I think I've heard that line about 100 times before, many from different people. It's a code that means something else entirely you'll learn as life goes on. I was able to predict from Gabe's behavior that he hasn't dated anyone since Lucy's mom, and I'll bet that probably a few others did as well. Subtle cues, I'm sure intentionally done, but still satisfying that as much as it was considered in the writing of the characters, much more satisfying than the surface dialogue that I've experienced in many other games. Not only is Kyle my favorite romanceable character in the game, but I found his backstory particularly political. If you know some history about Granada, it reveals some interesting cues through talking about the availability of current technology and could be turned into a commentary on imperialism. I completely understand if that's missed because it's something that's not covered in most history classes in the United States. I don't think it's entirely a secret that this game has some left leaning stances given the gender expression which governs the relationship system. I've already seen some dissension on the internet over how the system is programmed, disappointment that realism has been enforced and that we cannot just date whomever we like without the use of a mod, lamenting that some will be offended by this system, and yeah, that's true. I could tell you that some recent numbers are about 65% of the US population still believes in a gender binary. It's quite possible that 65% of US players are going to take offense to even be asked to assign themselves a place on the gender expression scale. There isn't a lot a developer can do about the state of the world around them except make decisions about how to represent and who to offend. Being someone with political analyst on my resume of positions that I've had in my lifetime, I understand that's a choice that you're going to have to make. In campaigns, I have to make decisions about who I'm going to offend and stick to it when it comes to crafting policy messaging. I was raised by parents with staunch right leaning values, but years of studying sociology has forced a change in my views because it's hard to ignore data that tells you a different story than what you were told to believe. As in meritocracy, it's a nice ideal, but it's not exactly how statistics pan out. And if you want to know what I mean about this, you can look up more about how zip codes and generational wealth predict income. Even when it comes to health, the National Community of Reinvestment Coalition estimates that 60% of your health outcomes are determined by zip codes. I'm not sure how much of our world is hinged on the philosophy of determinism, but I do think that there's definitely some evidence out there that our environment plays a massive role in our life development. Personally, I respect taking this route of not everyone being interested in my main character and that risk. I don't actually mind that not every NPC in the game is going to want to date me, but then I think I'm old enough to have that life experience as well. Suffered some rejection, and that's okay. I'm old now, I can handle that I'm not for everyone. I only installed the Date Everyone mod for the purpose of making this video so that I would be able to learn more about the systems and the character's story. I get that some people play games to engage in a fantasy of their choosing. That may be the point in games for them, but I can appreciate creating a different system that isn't all about giving me what I expected from other games. I hope others will consider what developers were trying to achieve with this idea in its realism. Many of us can also totally get that you want to play the game under your own terms as an escape from realism. So that's why I included instructions on installing the mod. But also, we do experience much of the connective story about the town and its residents through regular hangout mechanisms as just being friends. As for the idea of marriage, it was tossed around during early development, but it was a choice by Rainy Games ultimately decided to not go with that included in the game's release. I personally don't mind this, but it's a lingering expectation set by other games that's made the subject a contention. Relationships don't all have to be about the tax status. Although I wish there was more of a development to the committed relationship level, I do, however, understand that the creators have limitations like financing and time. Uh, Maybe we'll get a DLC about that if we're fortunate. It's not as if the subject didn't get touched on, though, as there are multiple non romanceable characters that have retained their long lasting marriages. Then there are some who didn't. If you find yourself hanging out or dating Hideo at any point in the game, you're going to find out how salty he is about his failed marriage with Yukio, to the level of being a giant red flag waving in your face. If the guy ever talked about his ex like this with me during a date, nope, just no, I'm out. You will continue to find that he lacks the ability to see life from another person's perspective and is really concerned with crafting a life around his perfect narrative. He's like that one friend that can never stop bringing up his ex whose trust issues you're unlikely to fix. There's truly no shortage of realistic characters in SunnySide, and that's one thing that I greatly appreciated about the relationship feature. If it was as surface level as most I've encountered, I wouldn't bother touching it. It's the stories locked behind the friendship progression that gives a reason to keep playing over the long term, beyond building up your farm or making more income that you can spend and polishing every aesthetic in your landscape. Each character storyline has cultural cues with a diverse cast who has experience from across the globe. I giggled at my first hangout with Blake, originally from Southern California, begging us to know what Sparky's cost is while indulging us in the way of life for kids who have technology in place of affection from their parents, which is something that I'm all too familiar with given that I am a drive up the road in the Bay Area. A rather sad state, really. It was hard not to shudder at her retelling of events with Hanako at Cafe Nako when she had to apologize profusely for Hanako's outburst. You can make a lot of speculation about Blake's upbringing if she feels responsible to apologize for the behavior of others. Much more about Hanako's personality. That's one thing that's very juicy about combining the characters' stories. They aren't just scattered occurrences, but tied together like small town gossip, much like the Yukio and Hideo story, which spills over into a hilarious cutscene of Kyle asking why Hideo feels shunned from his own family events. I'll just let you experience that one for yourself. I actually laughed out loud at Yuma trying to derail the whole conversation. I think Yuma might be really sick of hearing Hideo talk about his ex too. This game touches on a number of difficult life themes, including parental disappointment through Kat's frustration with her parents. For any of us who have ever wanted to take a diverging path from our parents' vision of our future, I think we'll definitely feel the storyline of pain and self-discovery. Okay, for those who really, really hate spoilers, look away now. Maybe someday I'll do a video about anti-spoiler culture. Some people might be really surprised about the research done on that, but I try my best to cater to that expectation. Seriously, warning, I'm about to give away the table of relationship mechanics. Okay, you ready? Here it is. Remember back to the beginning of the video where we went over the gender expression selection and how it affects which NPCs will be more likely to be interested in you? The developers released this spreadsheet through Discord during development, but omitted the names of the characters. So what you see here is what players have deducted by experience, many of which are pretty accurate. This further can give you an idea of how the multipliers work. For example, look at Hideo down here at the bottom. All of his highlighted boxes are in the -5 to -10 scale, indicating that he's more into feminine characters. The number 3 being the highest multiplier for the likelihood that he will be interested. As a person who's residually played a -4 on multiple saves, I've had Hideo ask me out 3 times, and while it doesn't fall within his suggested scale, You have a buffer zone for your gender expression choice. So even though I selected a -4, it also includes being in the immediate range of -5, so I still fall within the scale. As you can see from the red markings across the graphic, the information isn't entirely settled yet, but this may give you a better idea of how to know who's in your dating pool. Hopefully that ends up being useful. I'm 425 hours into this game and I don't know if I'm close to discovering all the stories of SunnySide. I know I just gave away some juicy spoilers in the last section, but if you want me to cover more stories of SunnySide, let me know in the comments below. I have that Date All mod installed onto one of my game save folders and can continue covering them all, but it's going to take me a while. It's something I'll probably revisit from time to time between other games. I legit have ADHD. That's not a joke. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old, so I either hyper-focus on something like I did with SunnySide, or my attention is scattered to about 100 different things. So I've been doing demos of upcoming games, playing Sailblazers with my buddy, just claimed a bunch of games off of Prime Gaming to try out. Also taking recommendation for games that you think that I should know about. If you like life sim games, cozy stuff, farming, crafting, building, and there's even some racing stuff in there too, check out the channel. I super appreciate that you made it this far into the video. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, y'all, and bye-bye.